Well, hello. I'm back. I didn't expect to be because we're at our home base right now, and didn't expect there to be much to be videoing at this time. But we did have a request from someone that asked, what kind of modifications and upgrades have you done to the fifth wheel, or do you plan to do the fifth wheel, and why? For a lot of people that aren't into RVing, some of that stuff doesn't really matter. It's not that interesting, but for others it might be. So because we got the request, we figured we'd just make a quick video on the things that we have done and are planning to do and why. And here's a little warning. They're not really that glamorous. It's nothing to the inside like decorating or remodeling. It all has to do with power and safety and efficiency and effectiveness for traveling down the road. So as I sit here and speak, Tom is out in our driveway where we have our rig parked for the day because it doesn't fit here normally, and he's working on some modifications right now. So let's go see what Tom's up to.
Okay, so here's the setup that we came up with. One of the agonizing decisions we kind of had was whether we were going to buy an RV fridge or a residential refrigerator. And the residential refrigerator requires more power, whereas the RV fridge can just run off of LP. So we also wanted to be set up to do, we think, some boondocking in the future, which we're not 100% sure on, but we wanted to figure that out. So what we did was
And what's boondocking for people who don't know?
So yeah, boondocking is basically living out basically where there's no connections, there's no electricity, there's no sewer, water, etc. So it's you need to be a lot more self-sufficient to do that. So what we've done here is we've added batteries to our coach. We've got 4 Battleborn Lithium batteries, 100 amp hours each. We've got space, we can get one more in here should we decide to do that. And then what we've done is we've bought a Victron MutiPlus-II, and the MutiPlus-II is an ideal inverter charger for a 50 amp RV. So instead of just having an inverter circuit in the camper, that just runs a couple of things, we can run virtually everything in the camper. We do have to be still cognizant of the power that we're using because we can obviously burn through these batteries.
So what can we do having this setup that we couldn't have done before with what came with the camper?
Well, if we, for example, if we're traveling for a couple of days, or overnight where we're not going to be plugged in, if we want to stop at a Walmart or a Boondocker's Welcome or Harvest Hose, something along those lines, where we don't have power, we should be able to run overnight without having to worry about plugging in. We do have a generator that we have to do some testing on as well, but that is a pretty good sized generator, so it should power a good part of the RV and should be able to recharge the batteries when we need to do that as well. So this gives us the option to be a little bit more mobile without having to plug the generator in.
Cool. Anything else you've done here in the basement?
When we started, we started with a power watchdog, and this plugs into the pedestal. I really like this.
What is that?
So this is a surge protector, which protects your RV against high and low voltage or surges and things like that. Very, very important for an RV. Since we've only had this just a couple of months now, I guess. I didn't want to be in the position where day one I had to wire in a hardwired surge protector. So this was a really nice one. I really like this because we could plug it in Bluetooth. But the one that we ended up hardwiring in is a Progressive Industries. The box for this is back in the bay here. That was a fun exercise crawling around there trying to get a spot to mount that in there. But this basically does the same thing. It's hardwired in. The nice thing about this is whenever we plug our RV in, it'll be protected. We don't have to. We can now just plug in a small cord on the outside of the RV. We don't have to put our big RV cord on and plug this in when we're storing it at the storage area because we need very little power there and risk having somebody steal this. And that's the other thing in a campground as well. somebody could walk off with one of these. This is a couple $100, and now it's built in, so we don't have to worry about that anymore.
I also noticed you did some things on the walls in here.
It's just a little organization. I found these hooks at Home Depot. I think you're supposed to hang ladders and things on that way, but they worked real well for putting things up on top of here that were just kind of laying in the way, and able to put a saw up there, a couple hooks in the wall for my cordless drills. I don't know where the other one is. The other one hangs here. Mounted up a couple extra fire extinguishers out here, so they're easy to get to without having to try and get inside the rig for those.
And the most important thing is your paper towel holder.
Yeah, paper towel holder.
With a handy rubber band to keep it from unrolling while we're driving.
Yep.
Okay. So, was there anything else down here?
No, there's nothing else down here. We did put the I did put the antenna on the roof.
Okay.
And I've got a picture of that we can just show.
Okay.
And
And the antenna that you put on the roof, what was that for?
That was for the cellular antenna and Wi-Fi antennas.
Boost our service there.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we could probably do that better in another location. So this is the antenna on the roof that we installed to go with the rest of the Wi-Fi unit. Basically, after measuring inside to see where the walls and things were, we figured out the vent pipes right in front of that were right in the wall, and so we knew if we went right behind that we could do that. So we basically just drilled up through the ceiling, cleared away the insulation, and then poked a hole through the top up here. And from there we just drilled with a hole saw down through the roof, and we were able to mount it up there. This has got a sticky bottom on it. So it just sticks right to the roof after cleaning it off really well with alcohol. And then of course we put all the die-core around here to seal everything up real good. So it should do good. It's done a great job picking up the signal. So that's basically the roof install. So here's in the bathroom. Like we talked about, we basically just measured from the skylight up here, the edge of the skylight, back to this wall. We knew that there were pipes in that wall, and then we moved back. If you look up in the ceiling here, you can see there's a grommet up here. Just drilled a small hole through there first, and just used a little wire to feel around to make sure there was nothing up there. And then we did a bigger with a hole saw and cut that out. And just barely went through there. We didn't want to go real deep or anything because we didn't want to get tangled up in insulation or anything like that. So once we had that hole in there, then we used another long bit and went all the way through up to the roof, and then did another hole from up there to feed the wire down. And you can see the wire just, we put the grommet up there to kind of seal that up, and then the wire just runs along the side and then down the back and drops into the pantry on the other side where the router is. So this is the pantry door. Where we mounted the, or we haven't mounted actually, but we're going to mount the router. But you can see up here, this is what goes up into the little cupboard in the bathroom, and we've just run that cable down here. And then this is the Wi-Fi router, and we're just going to mount that up in this flat area up here or someplace. We're still trying to figure that out. But this is a cellular router, basically commercial grade Pepwave. On the back side you can see where all the antenna pieces mount, and there's a couple of SIM card slots down there, so we have both a AT&T, which is our primary plan, and then kind of as a backup plan we've got a Verizon plan there too. Here you can see we've got the power coming in. We're going to hardwire that into probably the into the panel box. As you can see, both cellular routers are running. So it's dual router. It'll run two routers at the same time, so I can actually run both AT&T and Verizon at the same time. The antenna on the roof has been a pretty big improvement in performance for us, so we're happy with that. Everything seems to be working pretty well.
All right, so thanks for showing that stuff that you did in the rig, and it's kind of exciting to see what we are going to be able to do with all the modifications you've made. So to summarize, you've added...
So we added the Wi-Fi on the roof. Well, the Wi-Fi, the antenna on the roof, which has been performing quite well, it seems. We upgraded the batteries and the inverter. We did a little test run with those yesterday, and we ran the entire day just on battery, and it looked like we probably had enough for at least another part of a day. So that was kind of a good experiment to see and how that was going.
Are we done, or are there other modifications that you think we might be doing?
I don't know if there's any more modifications that I can think of offhand. Otherwise, I think we're pretty well set for a while at least.
And there is a possibility of adding solar panels,
Yep.
depending on how it goes with us.
Yep. So that's kind of, you know, we wanted to kind of take this in steps, because, you know, we've never experienced living in a rig like this. So, you know, our thought was let's start with batteries and inverter. That gives us the ability to, you know, to do overnight stays places where we don't have electrical connections. And then, you know, to test out the boondocking and see, you know, is that something we want to do? Do we want to do it longer term? You know, if we're going to do that a lot, then maybe it's worth it to get the panels up there. But if we decide we like being plugged in places better, then maybe that's not a good investment for us.
Okay. Well, it's all about just kind of testing it out and seeing how what our camping style emerges in our process here.
Yeah.
So. All right, so that concludes our video on the modifications and upgrades that we have made to the rig. And next up, we are going to be in Moab, Utah.
Yep.
And we're going to be there for a couple of, well, about 10-ish days, maybe 12 days. And we will take you on some of our adventures. We hope that will include hiking, some off-roading on side-by-side
ATV, all-terrain vehicles.
All-terrain vehicle, whatever. And maybe some other stuff. Maybe some sketchy roads that we might go on.
We might find something, yeah.
And so that would be our next episode, and hopefully that will come out not too long after this one.
Yeah.
All right. So that's what we have for you today.